Firstly, I make no apologies for once again reading the contents of this flyer, which I wrote in 18 months ago, and which I've since updated. I want to start off by reading this flyer that I presented to a lot of people in Manitowoc 18 months ago. Some people in Wisconsin, and Manitowoc in particular, are unhappy that the hugely popular Netflix documentary Making a Murderer has made them look bad. The interest in the plights of Teresa Halbach, Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey has grown since the documentary was first released. Now, if Steve and Brendan really are the cold-hearted murderers of Teresa that the state say they are, then there's a very simple way of proving that. One which will not even cost them, the state, anything. Simply stop procrastinating and give all the evidence to Kathleen Zellner for her experts to test at zero cost to the state. She has always maintained that if her client is guilty, they would be a fool to hire her, as she will find out the truth. So why do they continue to deny her access to all of the evidence, perpetuating the grief of the Halbachs? They gave her some items, most notably the bullet item FL, which was discovered to have not bone but wood embedded in it, the hood latch swab, which had 90 times more DNA on it than it should have, car key, which had 20 times more DNA on it than it should have, and eventually a CD of a report on a computer kept in Bobby Dassey's bedroom, which had been described by Ken Kratz as being Brendan's computer and containing nothing of evidentiary value. But during Brendan's trial, the only evidence against him was his so-called confession. So why weren't the contents of this computer, which included thousands of sick, deranged, pornographic images, used to help prosecute him? Well, because thanks to the time of day that the images were searched and viewed, it proves that it wasn't Brendan's computer, and that whoever was using the computer when only Bobby was home should have been high on the list of suspects, having achieved the Denny third-party threshold of access, means and motive. The state have declined to offer Kathleen Zellner any more evidence to test, most notably the car with its damaged indicator and cremains that were discovered well off the Avery salvage yard. Indeed, we now know that some of those cremains, which at trial were described as being merely possible human, were surreptitiously handed back to the Halbachs. It all begs the question, what have the state got to hide? Now, I would have to point out that disgraced former DA Kenneth Kratz and everyone that fell in behind him have managed to completely destroy Stephen Brendan's presumption of innocence. Even Mark Gundrum, who set up the Avery task force, was duped by Kratz and co. The magic key, the magic bullet, the planted blood, everything has been proven to be false. I must admit, when I first watched Making a Murderer, I was appalled at Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department corruption. It amazed me that nobody within the Sheriff's Department spoke up when it was so obvious that this was a frame-up. The other thing that disturbed me was the quality, or should I say the lack of quality, of investigative journalism. Making a Murderer has often been accused of being biased in favour of the defence. That's certainly not how the rest of the world views it. But I would imagine that to those that live in Wisconsin and are used to the kind of reporting on cases that is so biased towards the prosecution, of course, it will seem to be biased in favour of the defence. As many of you will know, one of my biggest bugbears is the fact that here in the UK, back in 2002, we had a most horrendous case where two young girls, Holly Wells, Jessica Chapman, were murdered by Ian Huntley, and with the assistance of his then girlfriend, Maxine Carr. And of course, the game was proven, the game was up when Maxine Carr referred to the two girls in the past tense, when they were merely missing persons. And of course, it really bugs me that I still don't know if Mike Holbach was ever questioned by the media or the police over his statement whilst Teresa was a missing person. The grieving process and could last days. As I say, if Steve had responded to the question, how do you think the Holbachs would be feeling? If he had said the grieving process could last days, you can rest assured that law enforcement and the media in Wisconsin would have jumped all over him and have assumed that was a confession. Now, as we now know, Making a Murderer Series 2, as I say, has completely destroyed every piece of planted evidence. As I say, it beggars belief that nobody within law enforcement ever questioned what was going on higher up the food chain. One wonders what pressures are brought to bear on those against speaking out. But I really do feel that it's time for the friends and family of Teresa Holbach to stop aligning themselves behind Ken Kratz's ridiculous conviction of Stephen Brendan. And I would ask them this question: is there any greater insult to the memory of Teresa Holbach than having two innocent men convicted of her murder? And I would also ask them another question: under what circumstances would the police murder or arrange to have assassinated a 25-year-old female photographer?